Alright guys, we're going to cover the two biggest knockouts I thought of UFC 322. First one is Carlos Prates versus Leon Edwards, and the other one is going to be Morales and Sean Brady. Prates and Leon Edwards knockout was very interesting because Leon did try to cover on his way out. And Prates was still able to get the knockout with his reach and the use of his good footwork. Okay, so Leon Edwards, he's normally a southpaw. But as they were lining up, he switched to orthodox. And a lot of times when you go to your opposite stance, it's your defense that's weaker, not necessarily your offense. So when he went to cover and skip out, he covered with his right hand and he did a long guard with his left. But there was too much of a gap between his shoulder and his right hand. So when he goes to skip out, Prates throws his left cross and it's still able to get in between his guard. All right? Now, most guys, when their opponent backs out, they don't step through and continue punching, they stop. So let's see somebody normal, okay, with a normal reach, how they would normally react to what Leon did. So let's say I'm fighting a normal range guy, and I'm stepping out. He's gonna stop and he's gonna reset. But Prates is so long, he has so much confidence in his reach that when Leon skips out, he keeps the distance and he reaches far with his left hand. So follow me. So here, and he slices through the guard. What is one thing that maybe Leon could have done differently? Well, one thing I think he could have done differently is when he saw that cross was coming, because Leon was looking at him. He was skipping out because he could feel the pressure. And one thing he could have done is when he was throwing the cross, he could have put his left hand on his forehead and he would have created a shield to block the cross from coming down the pipe. Another way he could have blocked the strike is as he was skipping out, because he was creating space, so he had reaction time. He saw the punch coming. Another thing he could have done is, when he threw the punch, he could have went to like a Philly shell and deflected the cross like a Bernard Hopkins style block. So that's my take on that knockout. The next one is going to be Sean Brady and Morales. One thing I liked about this fight, okay, was really interesting. Sean Brady had the wrestling advantage. Okay, it was obvious. Everybody in the world knew that Sean Brady had to get this fight to the ground. Morales has a huge KO power and he's got a super long reach. But what did Morales do to make it hard for Sean Brady to shoot? It was interesting. Like if you look at that highlight clip, Morales was fighting with his hands down by his waist, one hand on his hip. If you know anything about wrestling, you see a lot of wrestlers, when they wrestle, okay, in a wrestling match, they put their hand on their knee. Why? Because when they shoot, you could score that underhook. So Morales, what he had was he had his left hand on his hip and his right hand was right next to his belly. So at any moment, if Sean Brady would have shot, it would have been easy to scoop up those underhooks. So it was a really interesting tactic. You know, I don't know if that's what it was planned on purpose, but it felt like that's why they were so low. And when he throws a knockout strike on Sean Brady, his punches started from here. He stepped in and he threw a looping punch. Sean Brady was a shorter fighter with a shorter reach, okay? And he tried to pull back, okay? So you try to pull back and I'm stepping in with my footwork and I throw a long right hand. Even though he pulled back, Morales was still able to reach him because he's a taller, longer fighter. Then when he eats this punch, he comes up with the follow-up shots. Boom, 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 and Sean Brady goes down, you know? Similar thing to Leon Edwards. Instead of pulling out, being the shorter guy with the shorter reach, maybe, now you're Morales, I'm Sean Brady, okay? Instead of pulling out, so you throw the right hand, instead of pulling back, it's still being at the end of his punch, okay? When he throws that looping hand, you cover, okay? You saw like Ewing and Wellmaker, the first right hook that Wellmaker threw, Ewing tries to pull back, he eats it, boom. The rest of the night, every time Wellmaker threw a right hook, Ewing covered. He did a great job of just putting his hand up because he's a shorter fighter with a shorter reach. Sometimes when you're the shorter fighter and you have a shorter reach, instead of pulling out, because tall guys can still reach you when you pull, you stay in and you cover. You know, sometimes covering is the right answer. So that's my take on those two knockouts, guys. Phenomenal job by all the fighters. You know, I still think Leon Edwards has got great potential and he can come back from it. You know, he had a small gap and Carlos Prates was able to thread that needle, but I still think he's a great fighter.